Hey guys, Marshmallow Duelist here, back with another video. Today's Thursday, so that means it's a Tech Talk Thursday, and today's subject, as you guys probably already know, is Galaxy Cyclone. Now, this card is a bit of a classic, and by classic I mean probably 7 years ago now, something like that. A really good card, and I think it's criminally underrated and is still really solid. So, why don't we start off with what Galaxy Cyclone does? So Galaxy Cyclone targets a set spell or trap on the field, destroys it, and during your main phase, except turn is sent to the grave, you can banish this card to target a face-up spell or trap and destroy it. You can only use each effect of Galaxy Cyclone once per turn. Right, so at first glance, it feels a bit outdated and a bit slow, especially because it's not a quick play, and the banish effect isn't a quick effect, so you have to do it on your turn. However, I don't think that stops this card being good. This card is really good, and here are a few reasons why. Going into this new format, we're seeing a lot of decks that weren't so great now being great, or just new decks in general having a bit of an uprising. So for starters, we've got Trap Tricks with the structure deck. That's going to be popular as ever, thanks to it being now a very cheap and affordable deck that a lot of new players can pick up. Experienced players or people who want to show off their old ultimate res can play, and with the new support it does make the deck a whole lot better. Being able to hit a trap hole with the Galaxy Cyclone before you go in for a summon, that's great. Sure, you can do that with an MST, but you can also then go on to hit a continuous spell, continuous trap, or field spell in a later turn. Not only this, but we're seeing a lot of competitive success from decks like Labyrinth, and there are a lot of decks out there that run one trap that can just pretty much shut down your entire deck, and they can swap that out with their side deck. I'm talking the likes of Royal Decree, Turkbur, Goes Unmatch, Rivalry of Warlords, and Anti-Spell Fragrance. They all count as face-up spells and can be destroyed by banishing your Galaxy Cyclone. Now, other decks in this format, maybe you're playing it or you're going against it, do force milling. Whether you mill your own deck or your opponent mills the deck, thus putting this card into the graveyard, or there's a chance of. Now if this was Cosmic Cyclone, Mystical Space Typhoon, D-Spell I suppose, or just any other form of spell and trap removal, that's probably going to be dead. It's in the grave, Twin Twisters, you can't do it anymore. It's a bit of a sad moment. However, if it's Galaxy Cyclone, it's still live, and I know Taillaments is kind of dead. I mean, you can still play it to some extent, but with cards like Taillaments Kashtira that can mill the top 3 of either player's deck, if they mill your deck and this goes into the grave, well, that's great. You're not really losing out too much. In fact, it's almost like getting an extra draw in some sense, as you're getting this card and it's now usable whenever, and then you get your draw for the turn. So in that sense, it's almost, and I do say almost with a lot of emphasis on almost, like a second draw, if that makes sense. Not to mention that you can simply just set this in your back row. If your opponent pops it as bait, say you want to set something better, they pop this, or you set 2, and they don't Harpy's Feather Duster it, they just destroy 1 with like DPE, for example, before they end their turn. And it's the Galaxy Cyclone. Not only is that bait, but it's now live for your next turn. So that's a really solid thing to look at. And you might be thinking, well, the fact that it has to target a set one and then go for a face-up one, that's kind of bad. But think about how many face-up spells and traps we have going forward. We've got Runic Fountain, we've got Lost World, there's all sorts of field spells, Floandere's Map. Just a lot of decks right now have field spells, including the new Gate Guardian archetype, well, the Retrain archetype, you know what I mean. Again, like I mentioned, it can stop a lot of floodgates which are face up, and just going forward, we seem to be having decks that rely on field spells a whole lot more, as well as just getting some generic ones like Jewel Academy and Jewel Tower. They can all be destroyed by Galaxy Cyclone's secondary effect, and with the first effect we're hitting things like Solemn cards, Enemy Controllers, Book of Eclipse, just all these sort of almost battle traps or just very strong cards that are now being played a lot more, that it seems, in this format, as before there were like no traps in any deck, and I feel that now even combo decks are running 2 to 3 different traps And it may only be like one copy of each, but we're seeing Solemn cards plugged into every deck. We're seeing a Floodgate in near enough every deck, whether that's Rivalry, Spell Fragrance. There can be only one goes and whatnot. You can hit them whilst they're face down, you can hit them whilst they're face up, and if they hit this, then you get extra usage. Not to mention, if you just use this normally, it goes to the grave, next turn you get another pop. It's just like a Twin Twisters without the cost. If you're really struggling for spell and trap removal, how about you Twin Twister them by discarding this, and next turn that's another pop. So if you have a deck that discards like Fabled or maybe Dark World, if this is getting discarded, it's not dying, you're still getting usage out of it. And I feel this card's overlooked because it's slow and old, and people aren't thinking, if I run Twin Twisters or Cosmic Cyclone instead of this, if I discard that, I've lost all usage of that card. Whereas if I discard Galaxy Cyclone, I still have some usage. Even if it's situational, it's better than nothing. So, I mean, try it out, guys. I played it in Heroes. It worked really well against Runic Naturia. It worked really well against Trap Tricks. All around, this just did me favors all tournament long. I started plugging it into side decks or putting it in other decks where, as opposed, I may have used the likes of Twin Twisters before. I mean, Twin Twisters and that, they have their own usage. Like, the discard for cost may be useful in a deck like Tri-Brigade Melfi. However, in decks where that's not, consider Galaxy Cyclone. It's a fairly cheap card, and it's really strong. And as one final note, if you're playing Photons or Photon Galaxy, and a card says you can search a Galaxy spell or trap, Galaxy Cyclone is applicable. You can just search free spell and trap destruction. It's something that I used to do in Duel Links, and I feel people don't do it at all. They kind of just, it's not like directly saying it's a Galaxy card because it doesn't mention Photon or anything. No, it has Galaxy in its name. You can search this with Photons. It's really funny, and it just makes this card even better. It's gone from like one of my favorite spell and trap removals to like increased usage. And although I don't play Galaxy Photons outside of the games, like the 3DS games and Duel Links, if you do, especially with the new Photon Hypernova support, and you can search Galaxy spells and traps, run Galaxy Cyclone. Even if it's just a side and you need it for spell and trap removal if you're going against a very trap heavy deck, run Galaxy Cyclone. So let me know what you guys think of this card. Do you think there's better cards out there? Do you think this is just straight up outclassed? Or do you think I've made some good points today that may make you actually consider running Galaxy Cyclone? Maybe not as much as I do. I feel I run it too much, but at the same time, it's not really hurting the consistency of my deck, so I guess it's great. Also, I just really like how it looks in Secret Rare. That's really nice. But anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video, whatever that may be. And I would definitely like to hear from you. I'll definitely reply, and we can have a bit of a conversation or whatever. Thank you. Goodbye.